In the quaint little town of Willow Creek, where the streets were lined with poplar trees and every third resident had a peculiar pet, Charlie Thompson found himself stuck in a rut. A journalist by trade and a cynic by nature, Charlie had a knack for sniffing out the absurdities of life, but lately, his stories had taken a back seat to his mounting bills, and a parrot named Gus who, for reasons Charlie could not fathom, had developed an obsession with quoting motivational speakers. "Charlie, you need to focus on the positive." Gus squawked from his perch, flapping his wings dramatically. "Yeah, Gus, because positivity pays the rent," Charlie muttered, rolling his eyes. It was early morning, and the smell of burnt toast wafted through his tiny apartment, a familiar scent that signaled another failed attempt at adulting. But today was different. A flashy postcard had arrived in the mail, adorned with a shiny, holographic logo: the Rescue Project, saving humanity, one step at a time. It promised a press conference that would unveil groundbreaking advancements in human survival. Curious, and a little skeptical, Charlie decided to attend, thinking it might at least make for a decent story, or, at the very least, some good material for his next stand-up gig. Arriving at the conference, Charlie found himself surrounded by an odd mix of journalists, scientists, and hopeful townsfolk. The venue, an old community center that smelled faintly of mildew and desperation, was decked out in banners that proclaimed, "A bright future awaits." The air buzzed with excitement, but Charlie felt an unsettling tickle at the back of his mind. What did they really mean by saving humanity? The event kicked off with a government official named Dr. Harlan Gable, whose enthusiasm was as palpable as it was bizarre. With a shock of white hair and an oversized suit that looked 2 sizes too big, he bounded onto the stage like a hyperactive puppy. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for the unveiling of the Rescue Project. Our mission is to safeguard our future, to ensure that humanity thrives in a world that's, well, falling apart." He paused dramatically, and the crowd cheered as if he were the Messiah. Charlie leaned over to the journalist next to him, a woman with a clipboard and an expression that screamed, "I mean business." "What's the catch?" he whispered. She glanced at him, unimpressed. "You're one of those question-everything types, aren't you?" "Every single day," Charlie replied, straightening his tie, which was just as outdated as the venue. As Dr. Gable continued to ramble about the dangers of climate change, overpopulation, and the ever-looming threat of alien invasions, Charlie noted that one with a laugh. A strange slip of the tongue caught Charlie's ear. "Of course. The true strength of the Rescue Project lies in our innovative experimental programs designed to, eliminate undesirable traits, for the betterment of society." Dr. Gable quickly corrected himself, but the damage was done. Charlie's ears perked up. "Eliminate undesirable traits," he muttered to Gus, who was perched in a makeshift carrier, eyeing the crowd with mild disdain. "This sounds like a scoop." The conference ended with more cheers, and Charlie shuffled out, mind racing. What did he mean by that? He wondered aloud as Gus peered at him. "Maybe they'll turn us into superhumans." Gus squawked, sounding surprisingly optimistic. "Or maybe super chickens," Charlie quipped, already concocting theories in his mind. With a determined stride, he headed back to his cluttered apartment to dig deeper into the mysteries of the Rescue Project. A few days later, Charlie found himself combing through government documents and online forums, each click revealing increasingly bizarre and humorous accounts of superhuman experiments gone wrong. He stumbled upon a blog run by a self-proclaimed conspiracy theorist named Maggie, who had a penchant for outrageous claims and a laugh that could fill a room. "Welcome, fellow truth-seekers," her voice crackled through his laptop. "Today, we're exposing the government's secret plans to create an army of genetically modified humans who are incapable of disobedience. You heard it here first." She gestured wildly, and Charlie couldn't help but chuckle at her fervor. Intrigued, Charlie reached out to Maggie, and they quickly arranged a meeting at a local diner, a place known for its suspiciously large pancakes and walls plastered with outdated movie posters. As he sat down across from her, he couldn't help but notice the mismatched array of accessories she sported, one bright yellow earring shaped like an alien and a necklace made from what appeared to be bottle caps. "Charlie, right?" she said, shaking his hand enthusiastically. "So glad you're on board. The government is hiding something big, I can feel it in my bones." "I'm just here for the scoop," Charlie replied, taking a sip of the diner's notoriously bad coffee. "What do you have?" Maggie leaned in conspiratorially. "I've been tracking some unusual activity at the labs associated with the rescue project. They're conducting experiments, Charlie, experiments that could change the world. But not in a good way. Think mind control. Think super chickens." "Super chickens? You mean like genetically modified chickens with superpowers?" Charlie raised an eyebrow, intrigued and entertained. "Exactly," she exclaimed, nearly spilling her drink. "But they're also creating, well, let's just say, some people are disappearing, and those who don't, well, they come back a little different." "Different how?" "Stronger. Funnier. Perhaps with the ability to shoot laser beams from their eyes." "Laser beams? Now you're just messing with me." "No, seriously. It's in the paperwork. You just have to know where to look." As they plotted their investigation, Charlie felt a flicker of excitement. He hadn't felt this alive in ages, and Maggie's enthusiasm was infectious. Together, they devised a plan to infiltrate one of the labs and uncover the truth. They arrived at the lab the next day, armed with a mix of wit, outdated spy gear from a thrift store, and a strange sense of confidence. Charlie wore an ill-fitting trench coat that made him look more like a misplaced detective in a noir film than a journalist, while Maggie donned oversized glasses that made her look somewhat scholarly, though they were mostly for show. As they approached the facility, a mix of anticipation and dread filled the air. The building was a bland, sterile structure that looked like it was designed by someone who had never seen a window. They snuck around the perimeter, giggling nervously at their own audacity. "Okay, so what's the plan?" Charlie whispered, peeking through a grimy window. Inside, lab technicians in white coats moved about, their expressions a mix of focused determination and mild insanity. "We need to find the data room," Maggie whispered back, her voice barely containing her excitement. "If we can get a look at their experiments, we might just uncover the truth." With a nod, they slipped inside, the heavy doors creaking ominously as they entered. The sterile interior felt like stepping into a sci-fi movie gone wrong, complete with bright lights and an unsettling sense of urgency. They moved cautiously, trying to avoid being spotted by the busy technicians. A few close calls later, they finally stumbled upon a door labeled "Experimental Procedures." Maggie shot Charlie a triumphant look. "Here we go. This is where the magic happens." Inside, they found a series of bizarre contraptions and test tubes filled with colorful liquids that bubbled ominously. But the real surprise lay in the corner of the room, an actual super chicken, peering at them with an expression that was equal parts confused and disgruntled. "What the hell is that?" Charlie exclaimed, trying to stifle a laugh. "It's a super chicken," Maggie whispered, her eyes wide with excitement. "I told you they were real." Before they could take a closer look, the door swung open, and a scientist walked in, clipboard in hand. Charlie and Maggie ducked behind a nearby machine, heartbeats racing. The scientist, oblivious to their presence, began to speak into a recording device. Subject 47 has exhibited unusual aggression, likely due to. Charlie leaned over to Maggie. Did he say aggression? That chicken looks more confused than aggressive. Maggie stifled a laugh, but her eyes were glued to the scientist. We need to record this. As Charlie fumbled with his phone, trying to get a good angle, the super chicken suddenly squawked loudly, its feathers ruffling as if preparing for battle. In a burst of unexpected energy, it flapped its wings and knocked over a tray of beakers, sending colorful liquids splashing everywhere. Chaos erupted. The scientist jumped back, yelling, "No! Not the formula," as the chicken took flight, circling the room like a feathered tornado. "Let's get out of here!" Charlie shouted, grabbing Maggie's hand. They bolted for the door just as the chicken swooped low, narrowly missing them. "Super Chicken, activate!" Maggie yelled, half laughing, half screaming as they dashed down the hallway. Once outside, they collapsed onto the grass, laughing uncontrollably. Did that really just happen? Charlie gasped between fits of laughter. Maggie wiped tears from her eyes. "I think we need to rethink our strategy. Maybe more stealth, less chicken chaos." Charlie nodded, still chuckling. "And maybe we should leave the super chickens to the professionals." With their spirits lifted and determination renewed, they set out to uncover the truth behind the rescue project, convinced that the world deserved to know what was truly at stake. Now, let's continue the story with the second part. After their chaotic encounter with the super chicken, Charlie and Maggie found themselves deeper in their investigation than they had anticipated. The laughter from their near escape faded into a shared sense of urgency. They needed solid evidence of the bizarre experiments to expose the truth behind the rescue project. They spent the next few days scouring the town for leads, interviewing eccentric former employees of the lab and gathering snippets of information. Each encounter was filled with its own unique brand of humor, like the former lab technician who insisted that his experience with the project had left him with the ability to communicate with squirrels. "I tell you, they're plotting something," he claimed, gesticulating wildly. "I saw one wearing a tiny beret." "Right," Charlie said, trying to maintain a straight face. "And did that squirrel also have a laser beam?" "Not yet," the technician replied earnestly, "but they're getting close." Charlie couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all, but he also knew that beneath the humor lay a sinister truth. The rescue project was more than just misguided science, it was a potential threat to the very fabric of society. One evening, as they pored over their notes in a local coffee shop, Maggie leaned back, a determined look on her face. "We need to go public with what we have. The people deserve to know." "Are you sure?" Charlie hesitated. "What if we expose ourselves to the wrath of the government? They're not exactly known for their sense of humor." Maggie shrugged. "We can't let fear stop us. Think of the super chickens, Charlie. We have to do this for them." Charlie chuckled at her unwavering passion. "All right, let's do it. But if we end up on the run, I'm blaming you for dragging me into this." With a plan in place, they set up a live stream on Maggie's quirky conspiracy blog. Charlie prepared to deliver a presentation that balanced humor and gravity, explaining their findings while keeping the tone light enough to engage viewers. As the live stream began, the audience slowly built up, a mix of skeptics, curious onlookers, and fans of Maggie's wild theories. "Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of Truth or Nonsense," Maggie announced, her enthusiasm infectious. "Today, we're exposing the outrageous truths behind the government's rescue project." Charlie took a deep breath and launched into their findings. What we've uncovered is not just a funny tale of super chickens and experiments gone wrong, but a disturbing reality of unethical science that could impact us all. They're trying to eliminate what they deem undesirable traits, and let's be honest, that sounds a little too dystopian for my taste. As he spoke, the comments began flooding in, a mixture of disbelief and amusement. Is this for real? Super chickens? LOL. I knew the government was up to something. Encouraged by the reactions, Charlie pressed on, recounting their misadventures, the ridiculous encounters, and the truths they had uncovered. But just as he reached the crux of their findings, the stream suddenly flickered, and an ominous message appeared: this content has been removed due to a violation of community standards. Charlie's heart raced. What just happened? Maggie's face fell. They're shutting us down. We need to go. Before they could react, a knock echoed from the shop door, and a group of suited government agents strode in, their presence sucking the air from the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to speak to Mr. Thompson and Ms. Green, one of them announced, his voice as cold as the steel of his briefcase. Charlie exchanged a frantic glance with Maggie. This is it, he whispered. We're done for. But Maggie, ever the quick thinker, shot back, you can't silence the truth. We're journalists. The agents approached, their expression stoic, but Charlie caught a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. You've got it all wrong, one agent replied, voice low. We're here to offer you a chance to reconsider your claims. Or what? Charlie challenged, his heart pounding. You'll send us to the chicken lab? With a heavy sigh, the lead agent glanced around at the gathering crowd, the amused onlookers filming the scene on their phones. You might want to tread carefully. We're simply suggesting you take this offline. Charlie's mind raced. This was the moment. He glanced at the viewers still watching the live stream. What if we didn't? What if we went even bigger? What are you suggesting? Maggie asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Let's tell the world. Charlie exclaimed. Live. The agents exchanged frustrated looks, and before they could react, Charlie turned back to the camera. To everyone watching, we're being confronted by government agents right now. They want to silence us, but we won't back down. Gasps echoed in the coffee shop, and the viewers' numbers skyrocketed. The agents moved forward, but the crowd rallied around Charlie and Maggie, a mix of confusion and excitement sparking in the air. Tell us what's really going on, someone shouted. Maggie stepped forward, emboldened. They're trying to control us. This is bigger than just super chickens. Charlie saw the tide turning. The agents looked increasingly uncomfortable as the crowd began to cheer them on. Super chickens, someone shouted, and the crowd erupted in laughter and applause. In that moment, something clicked. The power of humor and absurdity was on their side. The agents, realizing they were losing control, turned to each other in frustration. We need to leave, the lead agent muttered, retreating. As the agent stepped back, the crowd erupted in cheers. Charlie and Maggie exchanged wide-eyed glances. They had done it. They had turned the tables on the very forces trying to silence them. With the agents gone, Charlie turned to the camera, breathing heavily. We did it. The truth will not be silenced, and we will keep digging until we expose what's really happening with the rescue project. The crowd roared, and a sense of victory washed over them. In the following weeks, Charlie and Maggie became local heroes, their antics and determination to uncover the truth garnering attention across the nation. Media outlets picked up their story, turning the small-town journalists into unlikely celebrities. But amidst the newfound fame, they never lost sight of their mission. They continued to investigate, now with a larger platform, and the absurdity of their journey kept them grounded. One evening, as they celebrated their successes with a ridiculous amount of pancakes at their favorite diner, Charlie leaned back, a satisfied grin on his face. Who would have thought that super chickens would lead to all of this? He mused, gesturing dramatically. Maggie laughed, raising her fork in a toast. To super chickens, uncovering the truth, and the absurdity of it all. And with that, they clinked their forks together, the sound echoing in the cozy diner, a celebration of humor, resilience, and the unpredictability of life. As for Gus, he sat quietly in the corner, watching his human friends with a bemused expression, perhaps pondering the strange journey that had begun with a simple postcard promising to save humanity. Charlie and Maggie basked in their newfound fame, which came with unexpected perks. The local diner, once a humble refuge filled with the scent of pancakes and coffee, had become a hotspot for curious onlookers hoping to catch a glimpse of the super chicken saviors. Each morning, they found themselves sitting at their usual booth, now flanked by cameras and reporters eager to hear the latest updates on their investigations. Maggie loved the attention, her eyes sparkling with excitement, while Charlie, ever the cynic, struggled to adjust to his role as a reluctant celebrity. One day, as they enjoyed a mountain of pancakes smothered in syrup, a local news crew set up a camera nearby, the lights shining bright and the reporter adjusting her makeup. Charlie leaned over the table, his fork poised dramatically. Okay, Maggie, what's the plan for today? More undercover shenanigans, or are we just going to sit here and bask in the glory of our super chicken fame? Maggie grinned, wiping syrup from the corner of her mouth. Oh, come on, Charlie. We can't just ride the wave forever. We need to investigate further. What's really going on with the rescue project? There's got to be more. More? Charlie laughed. We've uncovered a bizarre chicken conspiracy and nearly got taken down by government agents. What could possibly top that? Maggie tapped her chin thoughtfully. What if we visited the labs again? We could try to sneak in, see if there are more test subjects, maybe even catch a glimpse of their plans. You know, a little more undercover journalist, less internet celebrity. Ah, yes, back to the thrill of the chase, Charlie mused, with the added risk of getting arrested. What a delightful idea. Come on. Just think of the super chickens. Maggie urged, her enthusiasm infectious. Plus, we've got a reputation to uphold. Charlie sighed, finally giving in to her eagerness. All right, let's do it. But if I get turned into a super chicken, I'm blaming you. With their mind set, they quickly finished their breakfast and headed out. They decided to return to the lab during the evening, when fewer employees would be around, hoping to exploit the building's lax security. As they approached the lab, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot. They parked Maggie's old hatchback a few blocks away and walked in the cool evening air, the thrill of adventure mixing with a hint of apprehension. Ready? Maggie asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they neared the entrance. Ready as I'll ever be, Charlie replied, steeling himself. They slipped through the back door, which they had discovered during their previous visit was surprisingly easy to open. Inside, the sterile hallways felt even eerier than before, illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry bees. They moved stealthily, listening for any sounds of life. As they reached the experimental procedures room, Charlie felt a mix of excitement and dread. Let's hope we don't encounter any more super chickens. Or, worse, scientists. Just stay low and keep quiet, Maggie instructed, her eyes wide with determination. they pushed the door open slightly and peeked inside. To their surprise, the room appeared empty, the only sounds coming from the distant hum of machinery. Charlie's heart raced. They had an opportunity to search the lab without interruption. "Let's see what they've got hidden in here," Maggie whispered, stepping inside cautiously. The room was filled with all sorts of odd equipment, from oversized cages to strange devices that hummed ominously. Charlie noticed a series of notebooks stacked haphazardly on a nearby table. "Hey, check this out," he said, flipping open the first one. "It looks like lab notes." Maggie joined him, her eyes scanning the pages. "This could be gold. Look at this. Experiment 23. Subject exhibited enhanced strength but showed signs of aggression. Further modifications required." "Great, just what we need," Charlie muttered. "An army of aggressive super chickens." As they continued to sift through the notes, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. Charlie and Maggie froze, their hearts pounding. It was Dr. Harlan Gable, the very man whose enthusiasm had set them on this wild path. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice a mix of shock and annoyance. Just doing some research." Charlie blurted, trying to sound casual. "Research? This isn't a public library." Gable's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer, clearly unfazed by their presence. "You're not supposed to be here." Maggie quickly thought on her feet. "We're here to help. We want to learn about the rescue project. It's for a story, one that will change the narrative. Think of the exposure." Gable's expression shifted, a flicker of interest lighting his eyes. "Exposure? You think you can spin this to your advantage? The world doesn't want to hear about super chickens. They want hope, progress. Hope, progress, and chickens." Charlie quipped, earning a sharp elbow in the ribs from Maggie. "But seriously, Dr. Gable, what you're doing here, what if it's not right? What if people find out?" The scientist's demeanor hardened. "You don't understand the stakes, young man. This isn't just about chickens or some misguided plan. This is about survival, our survival. If we don't take drastic measures, humanity may not last another decade. By turning people into superhumans?" Maggie pressed, her voice steady. "Or creating an army of enhanced beings? Is that really the solution?" Gable hesitated, a shadow crossing his face. "Sometimes, sacrifices must be made for the greater good. If you can't see that, then you're in the wrong business." Before Charlie or Maggie could respond, Gable turned on his heel, marching out of the room. "You need to leave," he called over his shoulder. "You have no idea what you're meddling with." As the door swung shut behind him, Charlie let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Did we just blow it?" "No," Maggie said, her eyes shining with newfound resolve. "We just learned something crucial. Gable is hiding something big, something he's afraid of us uncovering." "But what do we do now?" Charlie asked, feeling the weight of their precarious situation. Maggie's expression grew determined. "We keep digging. If he thinks we're scared off by a little confrontation, he's got another thing coming. We need to find a way to get to the heart of this operation." Charlie nodded, fired up by her determination. "All right, let's see what else we can find." They continued to sift through the lab's clutter, but just as they began to feel hopeful about finding more incriminating evidence, they heard a noise, footsteps approaching. "Hide!" Maggie hissed, darting behind a large machine. Charlie followed suit, pressing himself against the cool metal. They held their breath as the footsteps grew louder, until the door creaked open once again. This time, it was a group of scientists, all clad in white coats and murmuring among themselves. Charlie couldn't catch every word, but phrases like enhancement trials and termination protocols sent shivers down his spine. Termination? What are they planning? Charlie whispered, his voice barely audible. Maggie frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. I don't know, but it can't be good. They listened intently as the scientists gathered around a table, poring over documents and images on a screen. One of them, a younger woman with glasses, pointed at a chart. If we adjust the parameters on this test, we might increase the success rate of the modifications. We can't afford any more failures. Failure is not an option, another scientist replied sternly. The board is demanding results, and if we don't deliver, we're all out of jobs. And worse, we risk the project being shut down. The tension in the room was palpable, and Charlie exchanged a worried glance with Maggie. They were in way over their heads, but they couldn't just walk away. Let's gather evidence, Maggie whispered, pulling out her phone. We need to document this. Charlie nodded, his heart racing as he filmed the scientists through a narrow gap in the machinery. He focused the camera on the screen, capturing the charts that flashed images of test subjects, some unrecognizable and others disturbingly altered. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the lab, drowning out their quiet breathing. Red lights began flashing, and the scientists scrambled, their calm demeanor evaporating into chaos. What's happening? One shouted. It shouldn't be going off. Someone must have triggered the security system. We need to secure the area, another yelled, as they rushed to gather documents and shut down computers. Charlie, we need to get out of here. Maggie urged, panic creeping into her voice. Not yet. We need the footage. Charlie insisted, still recording as the chaos unfolded. But the pressure was mounting. He could feel the weight of their choices pressing down on him. Just then, a voice echoed from the hallway, calling out for backup. We need all available personnel. We have intruders. Maggie's eyes widened. That's us. We're the intruders. Okay, let's go. Charlie said, stopping the recording and shoving the phone into his pocket. They dashed for the door, but as they reached it, it swung open, revealing a stern security guard blocking their escape. Not so fast, he barked, eyes narrowing. You're coming with me. With no time to think, Charlie grabbed Maggie's arm, and they pushed past the guard, barreling into the hallway. They sprinted down the corridor, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the chaos behind them. Where do we go? Maggie gasped, her breath quickening. Out. We need to find a way out. Charlie shouted, glancing around frantically. They rounded a corner, desperately searching for an exit. As they turned another corner, they spotted a door marked, Emergency Exit. Without hesitation, they lunged for it, bursting through just as they heard the guard's voice shouting behind them. They emerged into the cool night air, their lungs filling with relief as they found themselves in a dimly lit alley behind the lab. But their victory was short-lived. Which way? Maggie asked, glancing back nervously as the alarm continued to blare inside. Anywhere but here. Charlie replied, leading her down the alley and toward the street. They reached the main road, their hearts racing, and Charlie fumbled for his keys. We need to get to the car. They hurried to Maggie's hatchback, and Charlie fumbled with the locks, the adrenaline coursing through him. Finally, the door swung open, and they jumped inside. Go, go, go. Maggie urged, practically shaking in her seat. Charlie turned the key in the ignition, but the engine sputtered. Come on, baby, he pleaded, turning the key again. Finally, the engine roared to life, and they sped off into the night, the city lights blurring past them. Did we just get away with it? Maggie panted, her eyes wide with disbelief. I think so. Charlie exclaimed, glancing in the rearview mirror to see if anyone was following. But we've got to lay low for a bit. That was close. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the adrenaline slowly fading but the reality of their discovery sinking in. Charlie's mind raced with thoughts of what they had witnessed, the horrors that lay behind the facade of the rescue project. Do you think we got enough evidence? Maggie finally broke the silence, her voice shaky. More than enough, Charlie replied, feeling a rush of determination. We need to go over what we have and figure out our next move. This is bigger than we thought. Maggie nodded, her resolve solidifying. We can't let them get away with this. The public deserves to know the truth. With a newfound sense of purpose, they returned to Charlie's apartment, where they spread out their notes, recordings, and the snippets of information they had gathered. As the hours passed, the weight of the information began to settle in. They knew the risks involved, the danger of exposing the lab, but the thought of the sacrifices being made in the name of progress pushed them forward. Look at this, Maggie said, pointing to the notes they had taken. If we can connect the dots, we could expose the unethical practices. People need to understand what's really going on. Right, Charlie agreed, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. We can't let fear dictate our actions. If we do, they win. With determination fueling their efforts, they worked late into the night, piecing together their findings and crafting a narrative that would shine a light on the dark corners of the rescue project. Eventually, as dawn broke outside, they sat back, exhaustion washing over them but satisfaction lighting their faces. We have something here, Charlie said, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. Yes, we do, Maggie replied, her eyes sparkling. And we're going to make sure the world hears it. And with that, they knew their journey was far from over. The fight to uncover the truth had only just begun, and together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they prepared to go public, they reflected on the absurdity of their journey, from their chance encounter with a postcard to becoming champions of truth against a backdrop of super chickens and shadowy government agendas. With laughter and resolve, they knew they could navigate whatever chaos awaited them, one bizarre twist at a time, and in the end, if their story could bring about change, then every laugh, every scare, and every moment spent in the pursuit of truth would be worth it. And so, their adventure continued, fueled by laughter, friendship, and the undeniable power of the absurd. The end.